Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. It is my pleasure this morning to introduce Nikki Barua to you. We are currently at the Strategic Growth Forum in Palm Springs for EY, and it is a delight to spend time with you, Nikki, this morning. Nikki is a digital innovator, serial entrepreneur, keynote speaker, author, and expert in helping people and organizations adapt to change. As the CEO and founder of Beyond Barriers, a career fitness platform to help organizations develop future-ready females at scale so women can go further, faster. She's received numerous awards, including Entrepreneur of the Year by ACE, named as an EY Entrepreneurial Winning Woman, recognized as 100 Most Influential Women by Entrepreneur Magazine, LA Women of Influence by the Business Journals, and Women of Entrepreneurship by LA Lakers. Now, if that wasn't enough to get you excited about listening to what Nikki has got to say this morning, I want to introduce the whole concept of Venture Forward, which is the idea about having conversations about how we help women and how we help move the world forward. And Nikki is someone who has been doing that for a long time. And she helps brands transform their cultures and capabilities. And now she's on a mission to help women professionals transform their potential into power. So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Thank you very much for joining me, Nikki.
Thank you for having me.
So before we really jump in, I'd love our listeners to learn more about you. So can you share your entrepreneurial journey? Just maybe a little of how you got to the point of launching and becoming the founder of Beyond Barriers.
Well, I was raised in India at a time when there weren't a whole lot of inspiring role models, female role models in the media. And I was fortunate to, really be inspired by my mom, who's a terrific entrepreneur, and really see the potential for entrepreneurship to create change in society and to impact lives and to really build the future we want. And so from a young age, I had all these big dreams, and I truly believed that America was the place where those dreams would come true. And so in 1997, I took a one-way ticket to America, $250 in my pocket, and a suitcase full of incredibly unfashionable clothes, and made my way here thinking, life would be peachy. Well, in reality, it turned out to be a very big adjustment, as an immigrant with very limited resources and almost no relationships to speak of. So it was quite a struggle. I eventually made it big in my corporate career, rose up to senior executive roles in large public companies, and was very successful, but that dream of entrepreneurship really never left me. And, so at the peak of my corporate career, I quit my job and decided to launch my own venture. And of course, after all that corporate success, you think, well, this should be easy, right? Like you know how to build businesses. I faced 300 rejections back to back.
Wow.
When I first launched that company, I had no income, rejections day after day. And then when I was finally invited to pitch on RFPs for large companies, we failed 11 times. We lost the RFP 11 times consecutively, but I never gave up. And each time I asked for feedback about how to make it better. And then on the 12th time, we won, and we became a multi-million-dollar global organization, and was very successful at it. And then at the peak of my entrepreneurial career, realized that there was even more impact I wanted to create, which led me to what I'm doing today as Beyond Barriers.
Amazing. I read somewhere that growing up, your dad had created a collage with pictures of inspiring women leaders at the center of that collage for you. How did your dad, how did he come up with that idea first, and how did that inspire you as a young girl in India?
Yes, it was one of the most transformative experiences that have shaped my life and my mindset, more importantly. As I mentioned before, there weren't a lot of visible role models that were female, especially back then when I was growing up. India was a very closed economy. There were not a lot of access to media. And my father really wanted to sort of give me a different perspective of what was possible but he's a very quiet, introverted intellectual. And so he doesn't communicate with words, and he used this as a way to express himself through this picture. So he would cut all these pictures from newspapers and magazines of incredible women leaders around the world, whether it was Indira Gandhi or Margaret Thatcher or Amelia Earhart, Sarojini Naidu, and he would clip all these pictures, and then he would stick those pictures on the inside of my closet door. And and he kept adding to those pictures, and in the center of that collage, he took a white sheet of paper and he sketched out my face and wrote my name, and he never said a word about it to me. Not a word. He didn't say, hey, I want you to look at these women or you can be like them. Nothing at all. But here's what happened. Every day as I would open my closet, I would look at myself surrounded by all these incredible women who are changing the world. And I got curious about them. I got fascinated by them. But I also believe that they were my friends. So I belonged amongst those role models. You know, that my life and my future would be very much like them. That association and belief that anyone could create impact. In fact, everyone must create impact, because that's what our life is about.
Yes.
Was really that mindset and that belief from that visual imagery that God created. And I believe that everybody has limitless potential. And you know, our life is really a set of choices we make about how to apply the potential to create impact. And so I'm so grateful for that collage that, you know, from a young age of 5 that has guided me. And to this day, no matter what I'm embarking on, if there's even a slightest bit of self-doubt or fear that comes up, I visualize that collage and I remind myself of who I am and who my friends are and what is possible.
What an incredible, insightful idea, because we often say, and we often talk about this whole idea that if you can't see it, you can't be it.
Absolutely.
And women, you know, often struggle to think of themselves as powerful, impactful leaders, often because they haven't had enough role models.
That's right.
And enough people who look like them, or sound like them, who maybe come from where they have come from, to think that they could be that too. And I love that idea of just surrounding yourself with people who maybe look like you or don't look like you, but that become your peers and become where you belong, because belonging is really, really important for women, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, there's something powerful when you imagine yourself part of a certain peer group.
Yes.
And if you want to change your life, the fastest way to do that is change your peer group, because you will lift yourself to meet the standards of that peer group. And for me, that collage became like the first peer group, even though it was completely imaginary. I didn't know any of these women. They were nowhere in my personal sphere. But believing that that was my peer group set a really high bar, but also gave me a framework of what's possible. What peers do, and the whole idea of if you can see it, you can be it, is that it normalizes the idea of success.
Yes.
But it also helps you understand, you know, how to achieve that level of success, because success leaves clues.
Yes.
It always does. And if you simply study the life and the outcomes that someone has that you desire for yourself, if you have a dream and someone else has already achieved that dream, don't just focus on where they are today. Think about how they got there, because they left clues along the way. And if you simply adopt that for yourself, you will get similar outcomes as they have.
I love that. That's like picking up the breadcrumbs that someone else
Exactly.
has left so that you can follow in their footsteps.
Right. We often focus on, hey, this person became a CEO, became a top entrepreneur, became a millionaire or billionaire, and they have homes and cars and all of these things. We focus on the end result.
Yes.
We'd be better off saying, how did they get there? What choices did they make? What actions did they take? What risks did they take along the way? What habits do they have? You know, what do they learn? How do they think? And if you simply break it down and you start practicing it for yourself, you will, even if you don't have the exact same outcome as them, you will be transformed from where you are today.
I love that. I'm fascinated by the concept of following the breadcrumbs and sometimes experiencing barriers that stop you in your tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated to know how you have used barriers in your life to create some breakthroughs.
That's such a powerful framing when you think about obstacles as the opportunity to get to the next level. To be honest, in the early years of my career, I would often get frustrated by the number of obstacles that kept showing up in my path. And I just wanted everything to be a smooth ride. I felt like here I was with big dreams and I'm working hard, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. And just when it seems like success is this close, here comes another barrier and things get harder. And I would really find it so frustrating, and I felt ungrateful for those obstacles. And I remember one time speaking to a mentor of mine and complaining about all these obstacles and saying, I've got all these problems in my way and I'm so irritated. And his only response to me was, your problems aren't big enough. And
that's just what you want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, is he really my mentor? Does he care about me? I mean, he's actually telling me your problems aren't big enough. But the wisdom of his words finally hit me. And he said, if you want to achieve bigger things, you have to be able to solve bigger problems. Mm. And so if your dreams are bigger, expect bigger problems. If you want $1 million business, you're going to face $1 million problems to get to that. But if you have a dream of building $1 billion business, don't hope for $1 million problems. Hope for $1 billion problems, because when you solve that is when you get that result. Then you become that person you're supposed to be in order to get to that outcome. So you develop the mindset, the skill set, the strategies, the confidence of getting to that. And when I realized that, I thought about all the problems I was facing at that point in time, and I realized, wow, I'm still solving tiny little problems. I need to wish for bigger problems, because that will teach me how to become the person who is bigger than their problems and to get to the other side. And now I think of it really kind of like a video game. We all start off at the same level in ourselves, not comparing with someone else, but wherever our starting point is as an individual, you have a certain set of skills, a certain set of strategies, a certain level of confidence. And in that video game, in that level 1, you encounter problems. And then if you're successfully able to get through that, guess what? You get to level 2. And what happens at level 2? Your problems get bigger. There's more complexity. And in order to overcome that, you have to have even more skills and confidence. And then when you overcome that, you get to level 3 and it's even bigger. And so life gives us infinite levels, but a set timer. And so if you want to accelerate success, the key is, how do you get through, next level, the next level, the next level faster by embracing those obstacles and really focusing on how do you develop yourself into being the person who can be bigger than those obstacles at that level. And that's how you become the next level and keep going.
I love that. So let's link that maybe to talking about beyond barriers, because that's really the heart of the business that you are building and of what you're trying to do. And Beyond Barriers is a digital platform that empowers women with professional development to help them accelerate their career path faster and become the future ready leaders that we all need them to be. So tell us, I know you have this crazy mission, which is a million women in leadership globally and accelerating their growth. Tell us how you are thinking about helping women accelerate their growth. And I love the way you talk about transformation, because that's really what this journey is about for us as individuals, right? How do we transform ourselves so that we transform the world?
That's right. For me, this journey really began when I was at the height of my success in my previous business. And I had achieved a level of fame, if you will, and a platform, and had a voice and visibility. And suddenly I was getting all this recognition and all these awards, and I was kind of confused by it all, simply because as proud as I was of the success that my team and I had created together, it paled in comparison to these trillion-dollar companies that other people had built. And here I was being recognized as a top female entrepreneur, and I was like, the math doesn't add up. It's not that big. It's big and I'm proud, but it's not that big.
It could be bigger.
It could be bigger. And it felt like I'd won the Olympics because so few women showed up. And that really bothered me. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. that surely there's room and need for more women to be at the same level and in the playing field. And for the first time in my life, I got curious about why aren't there more women at the top, both in corporate careers as well as entrepreneurial careers. Why aren't there more women at the top? And I started looking at it from a very scientific and academic lens, not just thinking about it as a challenge, but really trying to understand the root cause and understand the data and understand the research around all of this. And having done that, I remember one particular stat that absolutely grabbed my attention, which was the World Economic Forum report from Davos. And it said it would take more than 250 years
226 years.
Right, to close the gender gap for economic opportunity. And I'm just not that patient. I don't want to wait 2.5 centuries to see this gender gap close. And at the same time, as someone who's in the digital innovation space, and I look at the future, and the future is filled with opportunity because of technology and innovation, there is more wealth that will be created in the next 10 years than in the last 100 years. The world is changing, and it is absolutely phenomenal what's ahead of us. And yet, if women are getting left behind, that's bad for everyone. That's bad for the solutions, the products, the services that are being built for this future world. It's a lopsided world that doesn't consider our voices, our perspectives, and our needs. So to me, it was both alarming in terms of the gender gap, but also to think about the lost opportunity for individuals and for organizations. Absolutely. And when I looked at the existing solutions, what was clear is that the existing solutions weren't designed for the future. They were designed for the world that existed 10 years, 20 years ago, that were traditional, professional development and executive coaching, and they really sat on two ends of the spectrum. They were either really effective, like executive coaching and going to Harvard for executive education. They're really impactful and transformative, but they're also extremely expensive and non-scalable. They're only offered to a tiny percentage of people who can either afford it or get access to it. On the other hand, you've got solutions that are super scalable. Think of LinkedIn Learning or any online coursework and all of that, but they have a 10% completion rate, and they're really not transformative. They give you slight improvements, but they don't really transform your career or your life. And so that to me was the clear pain point in the industry of how do you create something that is that has lasting transformation, but is also scalable and possible to offer to everyone in the workplace. And that's really what Beyond Barriers is. What we have built is an AI-first career fitness platform that democratizes access to the most important resources and relationships that women need in order to go further faster in their careers. So think of it like Noom for your careers or Weight Watchers for your careers. It gives you this personalized plan and guides you and nudges you about the next best action. It connects you to the right coach or the right peers and mentors that can help you through that. And it's accessible because it's a fraction of the cost, and it's scalable because it's a technology platform and it's driven by artificial intelligence. And our mission is to help women from the campus to the C-suite to go further faster at every level and really impact the organizations that they work for, because these organizations are not unlocking the full potential of the entire workforce. They are leaving 50% profit on the table because they're not tapping into all of that potential. And so it's not just good for the women in the workplace, it's also helping these organizations transform all of that potential into true power and become more competitive and more profitable, and ultimately become better organizations that's building a better world.
Yeah, 100%. I often think about the idea that if we leave 50% of the population behind, we aren't building a world for 100% of the population, and we need both sexes at the table, driving the future, building the future, hand in hand together, so that we build a better future for everyone.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that women who've tracked this journey could do to give back to those earlier in their careers?
Yeah, I think I think about our careers really in two parts. The first half of our career is often about legitimacy. How do you become a high performer? How do you excel at what you do? And how do you get taken seriously by the people that matter, or the organizations that you work for, the businesses that you're building? We're trying to legitimize ourselves in many ways, right? And once you achieve a level of success and you've sort of achieved that, gone to the pinnacle of your career, it suddenly switches to the next half, which is all about legacy. How do you now give back? How do you contribute your skills, your expertise, your network to help lift the next generation? How do you pay it forward? And that is something that shouldn't happen after you've gotten to the top. It's something for you to think about ahead of time, because we are all gifted with limitless potential. And as we're building ourselves, when we had that clarity about how might we give back, how do we pay it forward, it opens up entirely new doors for you. So whether it is in sharing your experience and your strategies for success with other people, whether it is speaking, writing, mentoring, advising, coaching others, or simply being able to, guide others, that removes the trial and error that they're going through. Because if you simply reduce the number of twists and turns, you will have women rise up faster, because
you accelerate the process.
You accelerate the process by simply being able to learn from someone else's success. And I think that's incumbent upon anyone who has achieved success to really think about giving back in whatever shape or form it works for you.
That totally informed my own decision to become an investor in other women, because of realizing, gosh, I learned so many things as an entrepreneur on my own journey. I could potentially help other women take some shortcuts by A, giving them a little bit of capital to give them a leg up, but B, maybe even more significantly, sharing the learnings and the experiences that I had on my journey, that maybe they don't have to make some of the same mistakes, and maybe they can have some of the knowledge that I have because I have been ahead of them. And I think that's really, really powerful.
And I think that also for you as an operator, an entrepreneur turned investor, it really gives you a totally different unique value proposition that is different from someone who's simply writing checks. Because ultimately, as you and I have both learned in business, capital is necessary but not enough.
Yes.
It just isn't enough. No. It's so much has to do with how you navigate that journey, the choices you make, the decisions you take, the risks you take, right? And that navigation is incredibly challenging if you've never done it before. Absolutely. It is, you're sort of guessing through a whole bunch of unknowns. And so to get that perspective from someone who has been down that path before you and has encountered those twists and turns, made those mistakes, can significantly improve your outcome simply by getting that perspective. So in my mind, the best investors are actually the ones that have built businesses themselves, because they bring so much more than just that check.
That is certainly the hope. But I agree. I think the challenge of doing something you've never done before and trying to grow and trying to achieve, the velocity that you need to achieve to make something big happen, is really difficult, and it really does take a village, right? And I think particularly for women, we often forget that we need each other. And because there are so few of us trying to do big things, and we don't often have enough faces surrounding us, I think it's easy to forget, and it's often easy to forget to ask for help too. And we don't necessarily live in a culture where it's okay to ask for help either. But I think the power of women engaging with women, and holding our hands out and sharing our networks, sharing our resources, sharing our wisdom, sharing our learning, sharing our mistakes, because no one gets to the pinnacle of their career without having made a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely.
And how we can learn from each other through all those things.
I think that has so much to do with conditioning, though, because I think women or girls are conditioned to sort of have a lot of friends, but not necessarily burden them with obligations or asking for help.
You reminded me of this yesterday.
Yes.
We were having lunch yesterday together, and I realized, Nikki had some powerful connections that I potentially could have asked her for a long time ago, and she offered them up graciously yesterday. And then she said to me, why didn't you ask me? Why didn't you ask me for that introduction? I was like, I just didn't feel confident that I could ask for someone an intro to someone in your network who's maybe your connection.
But I think we're all guilty of that at some point, and often are not even conscious of that in our in terms of the choices we keep making. And research supports this, that women have large social networks, but they don't tap into those networks to achieve their goals. And it has a lot to do with our conditioning in society, where we are taught not to ask. We are supposed, we are also conditioned for perfection, where we expect ourselves to have all of the answers. And if we're asking someone for help, that imposter syndrome comes up that says, well, if I'm asking for help, maybe I'm inadequate. I'm not good enough. Yes. And so people are going to know that I'm not good enough. So I'm just not going to ask, and I'm just going to figure this out myself. And then the third thing is that when we do ask, or the fear of rejection comes up, that what if I ask and this person says no? When you look at men, on the other hand, they are so focused on getting to their outcome in the fastest possible path that they ask even people that they don't really know, and will ask for favors and don't care if they get rejected. And so their rate of success is much higher, simply because they're focused on what's the shortcut that will help me get to this outcome. And that happens as entrepreneurs that are building businesses. Female entrepreneurs often build businesses in silos. They're keeping the head down, thinking they're the only ones that struggle with this issue. Nobody else must be going through the self-doubt. Nobody else must be going through the struggle. I must just not be good enough. And maybe I'm not cut out for entrepreneurship. Maybe I can scale this business. When in reality, if you simply connected and had honest, vulnerable conversations with others, you'd find out that everyone goes through the same stuff, right? And just being able to, do that, where we're not trying to figure it all out, and we're looking at how can we win together. And part of that is shedding a mindset of scarcity, to think that if I take from someone, they have less. Why not think from a place of abundance and think, if I, get help from someone, I create more, and I therefore have more to give. And I can give back to the person who gave to me as well.
I think that's a very powerful concept, because I think scarcity is a mindset that is very pervasive in our culture, and it's one that says, if you have something, I don't have it, rather than you have something, I could have it and more, and there's plenty to go around, and it's not an equal sum game. And
but there's reasons for that, and I think it's partly because historically there are so few women, whether in top corporate positions or as very successful entrepreneurs. There's just so few that there's an assumption that there isn't room for more, that there aren't more seats at the table. So we think of it as a zero-sum game because of what we see visible to us. That if there's 2 CEOs in Fortune 500 companies that are female, maybe there's only 2 seats available. We got to shift that thinking to forget about, fighting over the same seat at the table. Build your own damn table. Build a whole room and put a whole bunch of tables and a whole bunch of seats, because why are we trying to fit into a game that wasn't designed for us? Let's change the game and recognize in this new game, there's only abundance, and there's only opportunity, and there's room for all of us, and together we can actually create even more.
Build your own table. I love that. Yeah, there may not be room at the table for you, but let's just go build a new table and maybe build a whole restaurant full of tables. I love it. You've given us so many tips and pieces of advice and really, really great insights this morning, but I wonder if you went back in time, put yourself in a time machine, and you went back to meet your 5-year-old, 10-year-old younger self, what is one thing that you would tell her?
Dream bigger. I think that has become so clear to me over the years, that even though I always had big dreams as a little girl, over time I've achieved a lot of those dreams, and then I created new dreams, and then I achieved those dreams. And what I've learned is perhaps my dreams weren't big enough to begin with. Because if the dream you set inspires you and motivates you to get to that, why not dream really big? Why not dream even bigger than you think is possible? Make your dream so big that it scares you every day. But someday you're going to achieve that. And then dream even bigger. So now what I keep telling myself is every time I have a new dream, I scratch that out and I push myself to dream even bigger. And then I scratch that out and I push myself to dream even bigger than that. And every single time I've done that, that comes true. And I genuinely believe our destiny is shaped by the size of our dreams and the decisions we make to pursue them.
Just imagine what our world would look like if every woman had that thought. If every woman really took hold of her own dreams and said, I think I should dream bigger.
Yeah.
Imagine the replications and the ramifications of what our world could be like if we all had that mindset of just thinking bigger and thinking we could, thinking we can, and making it happen.
Yeah, and once each of us shines and achieves our dream, it's not just changing our lives, it's changing the lives of so many women around us that we may not even know, because we are helping them see the possibilities.
And it gives us permission, doesn't it? A bit like you were standing in front of your collage as a 5-year-old girl, seeing and having permission to believe I could be a world leader, I could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, I could do extraordinary things, and I belong in that group. Exactly. And I think that's what this is all about, isn't it? Absolutely. It's the sense of helping women believe they can, they should, they could, they must, take their seats at the table and start to dream even bigger than they already do. I think that's an amazing, amazing thing to think about. All right, my last question, and it's really about a viral post that went live for you in June, and it's very personal. So if you don't want to answer the question, I will completely understand. But it was such a powerful post for me, and in sort of just finishing off from thinking about thinking big and dreaming big. You talked about in your post how you went from hiding in the shadows to stepping into the light. So tell me, you wrote an amazing expression, which was coming out of the cupboard, which is synonymous for stepping into the light, but obviously so much more than that for you. And you've become a real advocate for the LGBTQ community and for equality. So not just for women, but also for that group of people. And so I'd love to hear more about coming out of the cupboard and just really stepping up into the light.
Yeah, that was a very personal post. And I shared that because I knew it would impact so many lives around the world. So many of us, not just about being gay, but in so many different ways, hide parts of ourselves, right? Often we talk about gay people coming out of the closet and they're coming out, but that's not just true for gay people. If we look at ourselves, there's always something about ourselves that we're ashamed of, or we're hiding, or we don't want people to discover, and we don't really embrace ourselves fully and show up unapologetically authentic. There's so much power when you show up that way, because you've got absolutely nothing to hide. And when you have nothing to hide, no one has power over you. You take back that power to yourself. And for many years, I personally struggled with that because I grew up in a very conservative, traditional society in India. That's where I was raised. And back then there was no exposure in media where even the word gay existed. I didn't even know that word, let alone knowing anything about sexual orientation or recognizing and acknowledging my own. I was just confused and lost and really scared and terribly ashamed. It was like this big dark secret that I was carrying, and I just didn't want anyone, not my parents, not my family, my friends, my best friend, or anyone else to find out. And then years later, when I came to America, even then I hid myself. In my corporate career, for most of my corporate career, nobody had any idea. And I remember taking fake boyfriends to company events because I didn't want to show up single or, hide the fact that, or be discovered, if you will. And I was so afraid of rejection or judgment or or really shame was what I struggled with. And because I was hiding so much of myself, it actually impacted my career at that time, because I was so focused on creating this facade and hiding in the shadows that I was more concerned about what if there's light on me and people find out the truth. So I avoided the light, and that prevented the best of me and all of me from showing up to do the work I was meant to do. My coming out was very accidental in the workplace. I was actually interviewed for a policy thing on CNBC, and somehow it came out, and that interview went completely viral globally, including in India, and
Wow.
Everyone found out, from my elementary school teachers to my friends and family, and I was horrified. I thought it was the end of my world as I knew it, and I would be completely rejected and ostracized from my society, my family, my community. The exact opposite of that happened. They were so proud and loving and accepting, and I had this outpouring of compassion and support and love, and it completely changed, everything for me from that point on. And prior to that, I'd also come out privately to just my parents. And when I told my dad, I was so afraid that they would be deeply disappointed that their only child, their only daughter, is failing them in their expectations as Indian parents, to see her have a big wedding and have grandkids and all of that stuff. And they still live in India, so I was so concerned about what that meant for them personally. And contrary to all of my fears, my mom was supportive, and my dad hugged me and said he loved me. And he said, "I'm just so proud of you for coming out of the cupboard." At which point I had to say, "Dad, it's called the closet. It's not the cupboard, it's called the closet." Anyway, years later, today they're proud parents. They are huge advocates for equality and for LGBTQ rights. They are creating out, lifting others in India. And they have finally learned to stay out of the closet. And so my lesson from all of that was, I was doing this to myself. And I can't say that everybody's coming out is easy or effortless, but it doesn't matter if some people reject you, including the people closest to you. But when we do this to ourselves, when we hide parts of ourselves, we are also rejecting our own potential. And when you finally stop caring about what other people think, and you just simply show up, the best version of yourself, and you embrace all of you, that allows for all of your potential and all of your gifts to come out into the world. And you become fearless, you become powerful, and you become an inspiration to everyone else who's still struggling through that transition. And so for me, it has become so important that I use my platform, I use my voice to constantly put everything out there, not just about past things about myself, but even who I'm becoming today and the struggles and failures and setbacks I'm facing today, and constantly showing up authentically. And I invite everyone to do the same. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or what your struggles are, but show up unapologetically authentic, and the world will change around you and will be rigged in your favor.
I think that is an extraordinary thing to share, and I think it's an extraordinary thing to call all of us to bring all of ourselves into the light, because we are then transformed and we become the best version of ourselves to be able to do our best work in the world and to be able to contribute in our most effective, most powerful way. And I love that you just say that's what makes you powerful, really owning your whole self, so that you can be your whole self and be your most powerful version of yourself. And I just think that's incredible. And I am very proud of you and very proud of the work that you're doing, and very thankful that there is light in the world coming from your corner. So thank you so much, Nikki, for being with us. It's been an extraordinary conversation, and I look forward to having many, many more.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Dream big.
Yes, let's go dream big, everyone.